Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a game which, on launch, I fairly liked. After having next to no expectations for the game in the lead up to its launch, I can say it pleasantly surprised me with its unique writing, its seemingly interesting world, and its brilliant ending. But since 2021 began, there has been a noticeable lack of Valhalla on this channel, despite my plans to make plenty of content on the game post-launch. So, what happened? Why don't I want to talk about Assassin's Creed Valhalla? Well, a lot of it comes down to Valhalla's post-launch content being an absolute disaster. As someone who has the season pass for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I'm not only disappointed but completely dumbfounded at Ubisoft's post-launch content. Not necessarily because they've not put out enough content, but because they've actively made their game worse over the past 6 months. Post-launch content, in my opinion, is a fairly farcical practice, usually used to squeeze a game dry of all potential money-making opportunities. Of course, there's exceptions to this. DLCs like Blood and Wine and the Ballad of Gay Tony are genuinely great pieces of additional content to their base game. But for every great DLC, there are hundreds of different gear packs, character packs, filler side quests, mindless content. And so far, all that Valhalla's provided is the latter. For some reason, Ubisoft have grasped onto the idea that they need to make every single one of their single player games a never-ending mess of content that constantly updates as the months go by to bring players back. In their investor report released at the start of the year, they bragged about retaining players for longer than ever before, about player counts being higher than ever, and these would be valid points if Assassin's Creed Valhalla was a multiplayer game. But player count has never really been a facet of single player games like God of War, L.A. Noire, Red Dead Redemption, Celeste, Crash Bandicoot, or Assassin's Creed. These games are built with a single main story, a purpose, and an end goal, and after most players finish their respective games, they'll put them down and move on to another. However, Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Odyssey are built on a foundation far more similar to Rainbow Six Siege. Actually, fuck it, they're built on a foundation more similar to free-to-play mobile games. But they're not free-to-play. They are fully priced AAA single-player games. Now, the microtransactions themselves aren't actually the problem here. I mean, they are a problem, but they're not the problem here. They're just the reason behind the problem. The real issue here is that Valhalla continues to come out with a never-ending stream of vapid, mindless, pointless, dogshit content that bloats an already bloated game. And on top of that, it releases updates that actively make the game less enjoyable to play, with level gating and damage sponge enemies being boosted by patches earlier in the year. These inclusions have done nothing but sour and dilute the actual quality of Valhalla. Sure, not all the arcs feel necessary, but a decent proportion of them are legitimately great, and as more bullshit is introduced, that greatness becomes more and more of a minority. I've opened Assassin's Creed Valhalla once since December, because I know for a fact that if I go back to it, if I get lost in the myriad of gear packs and river raids and Yule feasts, then I will end up hating this game. But the fact that I enjoyed the game in the first place was a miracle in itself, so the last thing I want to do is ruin that experience. Valhalla had the potential to be very good, and with a few tweaks and some stellar post-launch content, it could have been. But at this point, it's clear that Ubisoft are completely out of touch with what makes a game great. Hell, they're out of touch with what makes a game fun. I'm so done with that. I'm so done with hearing news about new shit for Valhalla. Just make a game and then leave it. You don't need to fucking update it for 2 years. You don't need 2 years of post-launch content. It's so frustrating, man. I don't want to have to play your game for 2 years to experience everything it has. Anyway. Like, just stop adding shit. Just release your game completed. They don't need to stick Odyssey-like content there. Like, yeah, exactly. They're just adding content for the sake of adding content. Like, none of the content that they've added in the past, 4 months has actually been good. None of it. Absolutely none of it. And that's why it's all been, most of it has been free. Because it's not been worth paying for, because it's been just dog shit filler. Because they feel this weird, bizarre need to drag their games out over years and years and make them fucking basically games as a service, and just keep rolling out content and content when it's just unnecessary. Like, you don't need to do that, especially if you're not going to put any effort into it. Like, sure, release DLC if you're going to put effort into it and try, but if you're just going to release this filler, mindless bullshit drivel for the sake of it, just so that you can say, oh, players played our game for 500 hours. Oh, players are still active on this game 2 years after release. It's like, it's a single player, story focused game. People shouldn't be still having to play it to experience all the content a year in or 6 months in. They just shouldn't be. And that's just the way it is. No one buys a single player game to fucking play it for to play it for 2-3 years. Maybe if you play maybe if you replay it, sure. If you replay it, fine. If there's a multiplayer component, fine. But no one buys a single player game to be like, oh, I want to put 500 hours of my life into this. No, that's the point of multiplayer games. That's what makes multiplayer games so fun. That grind, leveling up over and over again, repetition. That's what makes it fun. But single player games, it just doesn't need it. It's just unnecessary. Just release your single player game, release your story, tell the story you want to tell, or don't make a story focused single player game at all. It's very simple. If you want to make a games as a service, make fucking Anthem, make Avengers, and see how much it bombs, right? But you don't want to do that. You just want to capitalize. You just want to capitalize on that as a fucking market. So you slap the name Assassin's Creed over it so you can make money from it, so you can make sure it makes at least 5 million, because every Assassin's Creed has made at least 5 million sales. Fucking just stop releasing content. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is inflated enough. The base game is inflated as fuck. It does not need shit, drivel, pointless content that adds nothing to the experience and just drags out more and more time from the players' lives and more money out the players' wallets. Fuck me, man. Someone clip that, please. That's another good point, Chasers. One-handed swords. Why do you need one-handed swords? Like, is it really gonna make that monumental a difference to the gameplay experience? Infuriation. Because I've not, since my review, I've not spoken about Valhalla on my YouTube channel. And there's a reason for that. Because I have not touched the game since then. I've played it once on stream to do side content. Other than that, I have not played Assassin's Creed Valhalla once for the entirety of 2021. Right? And I've not spoken about it once for the entirety of 2021. Because if I go back to it, and I know if I talk about it, I'll just end up hating it. And I don't want to hate it. But Ubisoft are making it so much easier to hate as time goes on. They're making it so much easier to hate. So what I might do is just release all these different clips and rants in video form at some point in life, so to get those frustrations out there, because it is just it's just frustrating. That's the main thing. It is frustrating as hell. I know this was a bit of a rant. I know this was far less scripted than most of my other videos, but I just had to get this off my chest. If you did enjoy, it'd really help me out if you could hit like, and if you want to support the channel, my Patreon link is in the description below. Any little help really does go a massive way and make a huge difference. Also, if you're new and you want to see more content somewhat like this, then make sure to subscribe with post notifications turned on. That means hit the bell. With all that being said, I've been Joe, founder Scarab, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hamid, can you put 2 hands up my ass and then clap? I want to fucking pee in your mouth. The one downside of Twitter is the same as the one upside of Twitter, which is that everyone gets a voice. And whilst everyone should have a voice, shut the fuck up.